Good afternoon. I'm Jack Fink, political reporter at CBS 11, and you're watching CBSN DFW's special coverage of the start of the 87th legislative session of the Texas legislature at the state capitol. During this special broadcast, we'll also be watching President Trump, who in the next hour is scheduled to land in Harlingen and talk about the border wall. It will be his first public event since last week's violent attack on the U.S. Capitol by some of his supporters. We will keep an eye on that, but right now our attention is on Austin. I want to show you what's happening right now inside the Texas House, which is on the left side of your screen, and the Texas Senate on the right. The sound of the gavel will mark the opening day in both the Texas Senate and House, which will start a 140-day session in which lawmakers have to pass a budget. That's all they are required to do. But we know there is much more on their plates as well, especially this session. And you'll notice there are not as many people inside the chambers as you would expect. Typically, the chambers are packed with family and friends of lawmakers. But of course, in the age of COVID, there are strict protocols in place. I spoke with Fort Worth Representative Charlie Guerin recently. He's the chair of the House Administration Committee. I asked him last week about the protocols in place to deal with COVID-19.
Where before you would have two seats at your desk beside yours, and then two more available to each member on the floor outside the rail. This time there'll be nobody sitting by you except your desk mate. The guests on the floor, there will be the new members will each have two seats for guests outside the rail. The rest of those will be filled up. The few seats that are there on the floor will be filled up by one seat per member by seniority until we run out, and then the rest of the members' guests at two seats each will be allocated in the gallery. We're moving the press corps to the gallery on the west end, the east end of the gallery, and then there are a limited number of seats available to the general public, and they went out on a website, I believe, last week, and those seats have been taken. The gallery as well as the floor will be social distancing, and until the rules are adopted, which will be probably later next week, what actually is going to happen each day after opening day is still up in the air. Masks are going to be required on opening day. Some members will pull theirs down while they take the oath. I probably won't. I'll probably keep mine up since I'm in that over 65, in fact, over 70 range. And so, but it'll be up to each member whether they want to pull it down when they take the oath. But it's the ceremony itself will be shorter. We've encouraged the Secretary of State to keep her speech as short as possible. A lot of the pageantry of opening day is going to be missing. We're going to try to hold the whole ceremony to an hour and a half.
State Representative Charlie Guerin of Fort Worth. The House is now gaveling in. Let's listen.
Okay.
As we wait for state lawmakers to get their seats, even how Governor Abbott will address lawmakers today is changing. I'll talk about that in just a moment. First, I asked Plano Step Representative Jeff Leach about COVID protocols, not only for lawmakers, but people visiting the Capitol in Austin during the session.
A lot of preparations have gone into to making the appropriate, taking the appropriate steps to not just lawmakers and our staff, all the people who work in the Capitol, but the public as well, to keep people safe. We're taking the appropriate precautions, relying on medical experts and public policy experts to do so. But I will tell you and your viewers as well that they should feel welcome in their house, in their capital, in the Texas House. So if they want to come down, they're going to be safe. We ask folks to take the appropriate precautions, but this is their legislative session in their capital, and we welcome them to Austin.
At least two North Texas Democrats, Ana Marie Ramos and Michelle Beckley, decided not to attend today's opening ceremonies. I spoke with Representative Beckley about that last week, about her COVID concerns during the session in Austin and what she's doing in her office.
You know, we got the air purifier. We're testing every day. We did get the rapid test, which we will be testing everybody every day. I do have protocols, and then I told my staff, we did give written direction that, you know, you cannot go to eating. You've got to keep yourself pretty isolated, and if you're going to take this job.
The House and gallery will please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the pledges of allegiance to the United States and Texas flags.
Back to the Texas House as we listen in on opening day.
The invocation will be delivered by Bishop Emeritus Curtis John Gilroy of the Catholic Diocese of Beaumont.
Let us pray. Lord God, Heavenly Father, we humbly invoke your assistance over this legislative assembly and over each of its members as they endeavor to address the extraordinary challenges of governing in a time of pandemic. We ask your Holy Spirit to guide the new Speaker, Representative Dave Phelan, and his leadership team, that they may lead this body to act in unity for the common good of all Texans. May Texans of goodwill throughout the state come together to endanger peace, reconciliation, and healing in our wounded and strained nation, which remains and must always be under God. We ask that the deliberations of the Texas House be filled with a spirit of right judgment and wisdom, and that the decisions made here reflect a selfless concern for the public good. May each House member act with generous concern for the good of all who dwell here, as they seek to ensure access to health care, education, and a full life for all. May they take to heart how this exercise of political judgment will affect the lives of the children, women and men who form the communities, great and small, that make up the state of Texas. O Lord, bless all of us in this state to take up generously our responsibilities to one another, that ours may be a peaceable reflection of the kingdom of justice, compassion, and peace, which, though not yet come to fulfillment, is yet destined by your grace to renew the face of the earth. In our Lord's name we pray.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Terry Wilson of Burnett County to lead the pledge to the United States flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Barbara Gervin Hawkins of Bexar County to lead the pledge to the Texas flag.
Thank you. Would everyone please join me in this great honor to our flag? Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
And we now take you to the state Senate, which has been gavelled in by the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, who presides over the Senate. They are now in their invocation. Let's listen.
And your peace, which surpasses all understanding, will guard our hearts and our minds in Christ Jesus. But not only do we ask for your hand of peace, we ask that you would empower us to do our responsibility to be able to seek the peace. Just as you called the people of Israel in the book of Jeremiah to seek peace, as well as to pray for it while they were in captivity in Babylon, we too pray for shalom, for peace, and to commit to seek peace with our fellow man. Just as Peter told those who lived in tumultuous times in the time of Emperor Nero to not only pray for peace, but to seek it as well. We again pray for shalom, peace, and commit to seek peace with our fellow man. We ask that you help us to heed the admonition that Peter gives in 1 Peter chapter 3 to not repay evil for evil, but on the contrary, bless, and to turn away from evil, do good, and seek shalom, peace, and pursue it. We know that it's weak to allow divisions and fear and anger control us. Help us to be men and women who are strong and courageous to stand against the tide and do what is not natural but supernatural, and that is to love everyone, even our enemies, just as Jesus Christ demonstrated and called us to do as well. It's easy to love those who are lovable. It is supernatural to love those who are seemingly unlovable. Help each of us to commit this session to love each person within this Capitol, no matter who they are, and to seek the peace as we pray for it. Please grant us peace, your shalom, this session. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. You may be seated. We're all lovable in here, so we don't have any problems. Welcome to everyone in the gallery. The Secretary will now call the roll of current senators.
Betancourt.
They are just doing the roll call in the state Senate right now, and you can see all the plexiglass that is up there, obviously COVID-19 precautions that are being taken, and this is what we will see in the Texas House as well. Here's what we are expecting to happen as lawmakers work to keep the opening day ceremonies to about an hour and a half, at least in the Texas House. We're anticipating that Governor Abbott will be addressing senators in their chamber and then the House in their chamber. The Senate's time in session is going to be very quick, I'm told, this afternoon. The House will be in session longer today, and that's because they have more business to attend to, including the election of a new House Speaker. Dennis Bonnen is out, and it is expected that Republican Dade Phelan of Beaumont will be the new Speaker. That is a very powerful position in the House. The budget is the big focus of the regular session. The Texas Comptroller announced yesterday that the state's revenues aren't as bleak as first forecast, thanks to a rebound in consumer spending and the price of a barrel of oil. One question that will be discussed is, will there be enough money to continue funding the gains made last session in public education? The Comptroller says there will be. The Texas Comptroller announced the legislature will be able to spend more than $112 billion in general revenues for the next two-year budget cycle for 2022-2023. That's slightly less than what was spent in the current budget. The shortfall for this current year's budget is nearly $1 billion, which is a lot less than more than $4.6 billion in the shortfall predicted over the summer. That's because retail sales have bounced back, and so has the price of a barrel of oil. Governor Abbott says both will continue to rebound and help the state.
And so I think that we have tools and strategies to deal with budgetary challenges as a result of 2020. But for the next 2-year cycle, we should be looking to be in great shape.
State lawmakers from both political parties tell us while the budgetary news may not be as bad as first expected, they know there will still have to be tough choices made. Lawmakers say they are committed to making sure that the state lives up to commitments they made last session to spend more sales tax money on public education instead of relying as much on property taxes. But some are concerned.
I was not a big supporter of HB3. I did sign on because it was better than we had. But I think when the final bill came from the Senate and they took the funding out of it, I think that we are now going to have a really huge problem with it.
Priority for me is to maintain the funding that we passed in the 86 legislature, and I'm going to work very hard to do that. We owe it to public ed.
And we want to go back to the Texas House now on opening day. And as we take a look at what's going on in the House, we also want to talk about the increased security at the Texas Capitol today. State Representative Matt Shaheen, Republican of Plano, told me earlier that hundreds of DPS troopers and men and women in fatigues, presumably National Guard, were inside and outside of the Capitol. Our reporter Jason Allen is down there, and he told us that dozens of troopers were armed and outside the Capitol at each of the entrances. He also saw National Guard troops as well. But they were not wearing shields or helmets, but they were there. Their presence there is definitely a sense of tighter security at the Capitol today. Let's take a look at the state Senate right now, where they are swearing in the senators, and that's being done by the Supreme Court Chief Justice Nathan Hecht.
When we come to your office, please raise your right hands. I, Nathan Hecht, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office of State Senator District Number of the State of Texas, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state. So help me God. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Let's give them an applause. Members, please help me thank our esteemed Justice for assisting us today. Thank you. You may be seated. A quorum is present. And now let me welcome all the friends and spouses and friends in the gallery and family who are here with all the current members and the new members. For our new members, you've joined an incredible family. We work together. We have our good and healthy debate, but we do work as 31 members. You work as 31 members, representing 29 million people, the 9th largest economy in the world. And we're here to do the people's business. For those watching online, everyone has been tested that's on the floor today, in the gallery, ourselves up front. The governor, we've all been tested today. And as I said to the members, for everyone watching online, our number one goal is to answer the question, do we care about you? 5 words. We want our Capitol open this session, unlike many states. We want the public to be here, to be able to testify and have your voice heard in committees, to visit your representatives. It's clearly not a session maybe for tours of the Capitol and to check out the paintings. We want to be sure that everyone is here is to do the people's business as we are, but we're going to be open to the best of our ability throughout this session. And we do care about your safety and your health. If you're a guest, if you're a visitor, if you're a public witness, if you're a staffer, if you're working in the cafeteria, if you're working on our maintenance team in the halls, we want to keep everyone healthy and safe as we can, and particularly the members And that's what we intend to do in the Senate this session, so that we can be open as normal as we can be this session. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott. Great to have you with us. Thank you for being here today. And now, members, if you'll be seated, it's my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Greg Abbott, the Governor of Texas.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody here. And Lieutenant Governor, it's an honor to join you as well as the entire Senate for the start of the 87th legislature. I'm proud to have with me today the fabulous First Lady of Texas. You know, it's kind of interesting because she is like a lot of your new members who were recently elected the first time. She's been dying to get out of the House. And so she is excited to have the opportunity to come over here and get to see faces again, and looks forward to welcoming many of you over to the Governor's Mansion during the course of this session. Also, personally speaking, I'm looking forward to seeing two things develop over the course of this session. One, I'm looking to see the innovative solutions that you are able to provide to address the challenges that the people of the state are facing. Second is, I'm looking for the innovative ways that you come up to haze your newest, last elected member to the Texas Senate, Drew Springer. To all of you, to all who were just elected, congratulations to you on your election and or re-election. To those who were not on the ballot, it's great to see you again. To all of you, I look forward to working with you again this session just as effectively as we did last session. And let's be clear, last session was a tremendous success. Among other things that we accomplished, we passed sweeping reforms to our school finance system, and we made major investments in our students and in our teachers. But now, new challenges await us this session. Over the past year, Texans have been challenged like never before. But Texans are resilient, and our state will emerge from this episode stronger than ever before and in our typical superior fashion. To do that, however, we all need to come together and work together over the next 140 days, exactly like we did last session. Over the next 140 days, we have the opportunity to put Texas on a trajectory to make our state even more extraordinary. That means tackling COVID challenges and ensure better access to health care for all Texans. It means supporting our law enforcement officers and keeping our community safe. It means safeguarding freedom for all Texans. And it means getting Texans back to work. When we do this, we will create a healthier, safer, freer, and more prosperous future for every Texan. And let me add this. Now more than ever, Texans need you to succeed this session. But equally important, now more than ever, America needs Texas to lead the way. May God bless you in your efforts, and may God forever bless the great state of Texas.
Thank you, Governor, for joining us today. Governor Abbott, I'm honored to inform you that the Senate is organized and ready to transact business. We look forward to working with you to make our state the very best, continuous to be the very best. We're already the very best. For the people of Texas, I'd also like to recognize and welcome again all of our guests that you're here on this special day, and thank you for joining us. We're now going to take a quick recess for 5 minutes to allow the governor to exit, because he'll be going over to the House, and then we will begin our ceremonies of the day with our President Pro Tem. So relax for about 5 minutes. Thank you, Governor. Thank you. Thank you, Madam First Lady. Thank you.
All right, that was Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick giving the senators a break. We just heard from Governor Abbott. Let me recap what he said there, and we can keep a picture up either in the Senate or the Texas House, because that's where Governor Abbott will be speaking in a short time. But the Governor Abbott told state senators today that he really challenged them to provide innovative solutions to help deal with Texans who are facing a lot of challenges. He also spoke about the last session being a tremendous success, which brought very sweeping reforms both to property taxes, but also how schools are paid for. The state made a lot of investments in students and teachers. Texans, the governor said, are resilient. He said that the state will emerge stronger than ever before, but he said to do that, all lawmakers need to come together and work as they did 2 years ago, back in the 2019 session. He really encouraged them to put Texas on a trajectory to make the state even better. He talked a little bit about what he would like to see, the challenges, solutions on the challenges that COVID has really put a lot of the state in, better access to health care, also supporting law enforcement officers, safeguarding freedoms of Texans, getting Texans back to work. He said doing all that would create a safer, healthier, and more prosperous future for every Texan. And the governor also said that really the state is counting on, Texans are really counting on the legislature to succeed, and so is America. The Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, also told the governor after he spoke that the Senate is ready to do business. So we've heard the governor in one chamber. Now we are going to hear him in the Texas House in a short time after the selection of a new speaker, presumably Dade Phelan. But we do know that with budget priorities starting to come into focus, I spoke earlier with Representative Jeff Leach and what he would like to see done this session.
Well, my legislative priorities are very simply based on the feedback that I got from my district after having knocked on thousands of doors, dozens of thousands of doors over the last 8 months to a year, hearing from constituents, meeting with constituents. A lot of it, so much of it has to do with getting our state back on track, getting us open again, addressing the pandemic head on. This is a unique crisis. It's a historical crisis and challenge, but also has presented some great opportunities for us to reinvest and recommit ourselves to education, to healthcare, to our economy, to making sure that we're protecting the fundamental rights and liberties of Texans. Those are the things that my constituents are concerned about. And those are the things that we're going to be focused on this legislative session. Texas is the envy of the nation, has been for a long time. We're going to fight and work to make sure that it remains that way.
And we walk across the aisle to get the Democrats' perspective. I spoke with Representative Julie Johnson of Farmers Branch to get her take on the session.
I think healthcare is first and foremost on the minds of Texans. You know, we've experienced, and we are currently experiencing, a significant healthcare crisis in our state, and it has really highlighted the lack of emphasis that the Texas legislature has placed on improving access to care. I think the citizens of Texas are demanding that we address healthcare access in our state going forward. We all realize and have learned the consequences of having a poor healthcare system and how it can affect public health. You can have the best insurance and the best access to care possible, but if the person next to you does not have access to care and is transmitting communicable diseases, you can get those. So, you know, we understand how important public health is now and how impactful it can be on each of us in our economy in the state.
And one of the interesting things going forward to watch is the governor talked about increasing access to health care for Texans. And Representative Julie Johnson had told me, and other Democrats have told me, they would like to see Medicaid expanded in Texas. I spoke with Representative Matt Shaheen of Plano, Republican, earlier. He does not believe that Republicans will want to expand Medicaid just because of the cost, even though the federal government provides 90% of the money. Texas would still have to come up with 10%, and that is still a great deal of money, he said. So that is one of the big issues that we'll be watching as this session unfolds. The Texas House now is going to be debating the next Speaker of the House, presumably Dade Phelan, Republican of Beaumont. We believe he's going to get wide-ranging partisan support, though, so let's listen in to what's happening inside the House right now.
Leader for the Texas House. Many of us know Dade as a hardworking, detailed, and policy-oriented member of this body. I want to share with you just a few of the many reasons that Dade will make an outstanding speaker. Dade was born one of 7 children. He was raised in Southeast Texas, where he now raises his own family. He was taught from an early age to give back to his community and spent much of his time volunteering for various local organizations as a young adult. Dade and his wonderful wife, Kim, have been married for 13 years, and they have 4 sons, Ford, Mac, Hank, and Luke. Family is the most important thing to Dade and Kim. When Dade isn't working, he can be found spending time with their boys at Boy Scout events, going to the ballpark, playing tennis, attending cross-country meets, or taking the boys hunting and fishing. However, it isn't all rough and tumble in the Phelan house. Dade loves to cook and loves showing the boys their way around the kitchen. His wife, Kim, is a solo practicing attorney and gives much of her time to nonprofit causes that are important to her. I think it's important to note that these two have the best time management skills of any couple I've ever known. When I asked Kim to describe Dade for me, her first 2 comments were that he is high energy and passionate about what he believes in. I think we can all agree that those would be an accurate description of our colleague Dade, and also great attributes in a potential speaker. Dade was elected in 2015 to represent House District 21 in the Texas House. I met Dade at this time and immediately saw my classmates' potential to be a great leader, not only for his district, but for the entire state. He is hardworking, disciplined, fair, and always gives credit where credit is due. This was on full display in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey in 2017, as Dade's district in Southeast Texas was one of the hardest hit areas in our state. You will never hear this from him, but I've heard many stories of his selfless actions during that time. After Harvey dropped over 20 trillion gallons of water across Southeast Texas, the people of his district were completely shut off from everywhere. Supplies could not be delivered by truck because every roadway had been flooded over. Dade coordinated with multiple organizations to solve this problem. Planes soon flew in critical supplies so that the most vulnerable among us had their necessities. I heard the Orange County Airport had never seen that many planes in its entire existence. Dade was there in a t-shirt and jeans. He was not there to be seen or to ensure that people remembered him. He was there to get to work and serve his community as he had done many times before. When we returned to the 86th session 2 years ago, Dade was ready to get to work for all districts hit by Hurricane Harvey, not just his own. Last session, he helped pass the session's major flood relief bill package in response to the devastation Harvey brought. After session, Dade traveled the state working to educate other districts on the need for Proposition 8 on the November 2019 constitutional amendment ballot. This paved the way for the state's flood infrastructure fund to help all communities fight against flooding and be better prepared for the next storm event. Dade saw problems and delivered solutions. As a resident in one of the hard-hit districts, he could have simply advocated just for his area. Instead, he worked hard for his district and the state as a whole, leaving both better than they were before. Now Dade has been asked to help us recover from a different kind of storm. He's been asked to step up and lead this body to what will probably be the toughest session any of us will ever experience. We are weathering the storm of COVID-19, and we need a leader like Dade to help guide this House to solutions for the benefit of all Texans. Members that I've spoken to about Dade all had the same sentiments. We know Dade, we trust Dade, and we have seen Dade in action. He will work hard for us and help us all be successful for our own districts. Dade intimately understands the process of this legislature and knows the most successful sessions happen when members are allowed to represent their districts freely. This is the kind of leader we need right now more than ever. It is time to get to work and leave the problems of 2020 behind. Members, Dade is the right man for this job, and I am proud to nominate Dade Phelan as Speaker of the Texas House for the great state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed, and the chair recognizes the Honorable Nicole Collier of Tarrant County for the first seconding speech.
Members and guests, good afternoon and welcome to your Texas Capitol. I wrote a list of all the reasons why I support Representative Dade Phelan for Speaker, and they're all in this binder. But because I only have 3 minutes, I'll paraphrase for you. I stand before you not as one of the few courageous women who serve in this body. I don't even stand before you as one of the even fewer Blacks who fearlessly serve in this legislature. No, I stand before you as your fellow colleague with the same rights and responsibilities that you have to the great state of Texas and to this legislative body. Because we are one. I made the decision to support Representative Phelan for Speaker based on what I know. Now, my mom, she often told me that there are times when it's best to stick with what you know instead of what you heard. And what I know about Dade Phelan is that he is the right person for our state. He's a person of discernment and focus. In fact, what I appreciate about Dade Phelan is that he's a person who listens. Let me explain. Now, towards the end of his first session, he approached me on the floor and asked if he could sign on to one of my bills. You know how we do that. Now, I was taken aback a little because at that time, there were few Republicans who asked to sign on to my bills. But not Dade Phelan. He said to me, "You have a bill that my wife says I should sign on to." She said it can help people who lose their health insurance coverage. If it isn't possible for me to sign on, then at least I can tell her I tried. Well, we marched right over to that clerk's office and got that man a pen. Now, that may not seem like anything out of the ordinary to some, but it told me a lot about him. For one, it told me that he is a person with a sense of humility. When he approached me, he admitted it wasn't his idea. A strong leader surrounds himself with smart people who can make them better. And a strong leader has no problem of enlisting the help of others. Secondly, it told me that he is a person who listens. Not only did he listen, but I believed he listened to reason. When his wife made that suggestion, of course. A leader with integrity has no problem giving credit to where credit is due. And in this case, he admitted it was his wife's brilliant idea. This also told me that he's a person who takes action. He had a conversation with his wife, and afterwards, he acted on it. Thirdly, it told me that he's courageous because he signed on to the bill of a member who had been dubbed by some media outlets as one of the most liberal members in this House. He wasn't afraid or concerned with taking on a position that some may think is risky because he believed in it. And lastly, it tells me that he cares. He listened to his wife's recommendation, and he even cared about keeping his word. He wanted to be accountable for his actions by keeping his word. Now, if that's the approach he takes, at his own home, imagine how he'll lead this House. Remember, while we may be on opposite sides of the political aisle, we all reside in the same house. It is the love that we have for our house that makes it our home. And when it comes to our home, we will do what is necessary to take care of it, to protect it. Dade Phelan knows this because he has the desire to build us up, not tear us down. He wants to bring us together and not divide us. I firmly believe that Dade Phelan is the right leader to work with us in tearing down the systemic racism that has eroded so many parts of our systems of government. He will support our educational system to ensure that the tools and resources are available to prepare the next generation of leaders. He will work with us to strengthen our economy by helping to get people back to work. And he will work with us to build a healthcare system that can withstand the strains of a pandemic. We must remember Dade Phelan's leadership qualities and rely on them to help navigate us through these challenging times that lie ahead. Come back to these notions of unity when divisive legislation is before us. Focus on the positives and remember the fact that we are all part of the same house. A house united will not fall. And these, my friends, are the reasons why I second the nomination for Dade Phelan as Speaker. God bless Texas.
Thank you. The chair recognizes the Honorable J.M. Lozano of Kleberg County for the next seconding speech.
Thank you, Madam Secretary and members. I rise today to second the nomination of our friend, our colleague, and the next Speaker of the Texas House, Dade Phelan. Dade and I have many similarities. We are both Republicans. We both have young families. We are both business owners, and we're both pretty good cooks. And we both represent coastal districts, which are full of hardworking men and women who keep the Texas economy going strong, so strong that the coast provides 1/3 of the state's total economic output. But that is not the reason I am nominating him today. I'm proud to speak today because Dade understands that Texas is a coalition of diverse cultures, from Brownsville to Amarillo, from his hometown of Beaumont to the mountains of El Paso. He wants us to represent our communities, to vote our districts, and to solve Texas's challenges. Dade understands that we are united by dinner table issues. That is what this session will be about, solving problems and getting things done on behalf of all Texans. The unique times we face today require steady, thoughtful leadership, the kind of leader that is Dade Phelan. Oprah Winfrey once said, "Leadership is about empathy. It is about having the ability to relate and connect with people." And when I first met Dade, I was a second-term state rep. Dade was coming in as a freshman. And the first thing he did was ask how my now retiring chief of staff was doing. I learned that when he was a Capitol staffer, as I was when I was much younger, she was his boss. Dade spoke so well of her. He showed that he cared for her as if she were his second mother. Dade has a big heart, full of empathy. It is so big that his heart is as big as Texas. And we are just beginning this 140-day journey of doing the people's business. And at the end of this session, we cannot leave Austin discouraged by our challenges, but be proud to have faced them and risen above them because of our hard work, of our sacrifice, and because of our next Speaker of the Texas House, Dade Phelan. Thank you.
Members, the remaining seconds of the nomination of the Honorable Dade Phelan for Speaker of the House of Representatives have been provided to the chair in writing. I will now recognize each member who has provided a written second. As I read your name, please stand briefly at your desk. The following members second the nomination of the Honorable Dade Phelan for Speaker of the House of Representatives. The Honorable Cody Harris of Anderson County, the Honorable Sean Thierry of Harris County, the Honorable Mays Middleton of Chambers County, the Honorable Aaron Zwiener of Hayes County, the Honorable Alex Dominguez of Cameron County, the Honorable Candy Noble of Collin County. The nomination of the Honorable Dade Phelan has been duly seconded. The question now occurs on the election of the Honorable Dade Phelan as Speaker of the House of Representatives. The chair has received a written request for a record vote from Representatives Harris, Click, and Murphy. All those in favor, vote aye. And all those opposed, vote nay. This is a record vote. The clerk will ring the bell. Have all members voted? Someone has their hand up. He's asking a question. No? Have all members voted? Mr. Larson, I'm going to show is voting aye. Is that right? Have all members voted? There being 143 ayes and 2 nays, 4 abstentions, not voting. Pursuant to the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas, I declare the Honorable Dade Phelan of Jefferson County to be the duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives. The chair announces the appointment of the following honorary escort committee for the Speaker-elect. The members of the escort committee, please stand as your name is read and remain standing at your desks until the Speaker-elect and his family arrive on the dais. The clerk will read the committee.
Honorary Escort Committee for the Speaker-elect. Lamont, Chair. Buckley, Cole, Fierro, Lucio, Christina Morales of Harris, Murr, Niave, Rose, Slauson, Smith, Swanson, and Tallarico.
The Honorary Escort Committee will please remain standing. Speaker-elect Phelan, please proceed to the dais with your family and be seated. The Honorary Escort Committee may be seated. The chair recognizes the Honorable Eva Guzman, Justice of the Supreme Court of Texas.
Good afternoon. Speaker-elect Phelan, I'm honored to administer the oath of office to you on this glorious day. Please step forward with your family. Please raise your right hand.
Bible.
Right here.
Oh.
Where'd it go? Is that it right there? Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me, stating your name where I state mine. I, Eva Guzman,
I, Dade Phelan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office
of
Speaker of the House of Representatives
of Speaker of the House of Representatives
of the 87th Legislature of the State of Texas,
of the 87th Legislature of the State of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state.
the Constitution and laws of the United States and this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Joe Desautels of Jefferson for the introduction of the Speaker's family.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and members and guests. I am indeed pleased to introduce to you the Speaker Phelan's family members who are here on the dais with him, his wife, Kim, his 4 sons, Ford, Mac, Hank, and Luke, and his parents are here as well, Janie and Michael Phelan. It is indeed an honor to be able to introduce them. And the day that I got a call from Julia, would I do this? I said, hi, what a great honor. And then my stomach sank. Do you think this is in lieu of appropriations, Chair? Just kidding. It is a true honor. Dade is an old friend. I've been knowing his family for many years. So now, fellow members and honored guests, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives for the 87th Legislative District, 87th Legislature, the Honorable Dade Phelan of Jefferson County, Texas. Dade, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Madam Secretary, Justice Guzman, thank you for playing such an essential part in today's proceedings and for your service to our state. Bishop Guillory, I said it right, Guillory. My friend and spiritual counsel from Southeast Texas, your prayerful words are so appreciated in these turbulent, challenging times. Nicole, JM, thank you for your kind words and for your friendship. And Will, my former desk mate, he talked me into running for speaker so you didn't have to sit next to me anymore. But I thank you nonetheless. Your speeches were so good, you convinced me to vote for myself. Members, I'm grateful for your support to be the next Speaker of the Texas House. And to our guests, I welcome you to your Texas House. The confidence you have placed in me today will serve as a constant reminder of what, the teleprompter, you're a little bit behind, of what you expect and what this great institution deserves of me as Speaker. Thank you. I would not be here today without the enduring love and support of my wife, Kim. And while I may now preside as Speaker of the Texas House, Kim will always be the Speaker's Speaker. And I, like any member of this body, am only as strong as the people who support me. Kim is that strong, loving mother and wife. She's an accomplished attorney, executive director of a nonprofit for at-risk youth, and president of the Mental Health Association of Southeast Texas. Throughout this pandemic, Kim has also served as teacher, principal, and superintendent of the Phelan Zoom School. With grace and patience, she undertook it all of these roles, in addition to her full-time jobs and commitments, and none of these obligations end today. Kim, I'm continuously in awe of everything you do for our family. Thank you. Ford, Mac, Hank, and Luke, my boys, having you here today is a moment I will cherish forever. Your understanding of Dad missing too many Little League games, scout meetings, and family dinners shows just how cool you think Dad is. Am I right, Luke? Okay. Maybe not. 10 years ago, it was my esteemed colleague, Representative Sophronia Thompson, Ms. T, who stood here in this chamber in the heat of debate and said, God made me a woman, and thank God he made your mother a woman, because you men wouldn't be here. It's as though my mother wrote that herself. Mom and Dad, thank you for being here, and thank you for your continuous support over the years. You taught me and showed me what it means to love your family, abide by your faith, and serve others. You made me who I am today, and I'm so blessed to be your son. To my 6 brothers and sisters, yes, Irish Catholic, if you're asking. To my 6 brothers and sisters and their families, your constant support has been essential. But I'm obviously Mom and Dad's favorite now. To the spouses, families, and children of my colleagues, the state of Texas owes you a debt of gratitude. Being the spouse of a lawmaker is never easy. Members, as you know well, part of being a public servant means missing moments that you cannot fully experience with a photo or video, a recital, a baseball game, or dinner around the table. We never get those moments back. And for that, let's recognize our significant others who hold our families together while we attend the work of the people. To my returning colleagues, welcome back. And to our 16 new colleagues, welcome to your house. Not long ago, as a newly elected House member, I sat where you sit now, ready to take my first oath of office. I was filled with excitement and marveled at the enormity of the responsibility ahead of me. What I have learned is that each member of this illustrious body brings something unique to this chamber. And 27 years ago, I started working here as a young staffer. The privilege of walking into the Capitol to work for the people of Texas humbled me as much then as it does now. And it also serves as a reminder to all those who work and visit this building, always be nice to staff. You never know where they might end up. From where I stand today, a place where 75 speakers have come before me, I'm equally humbled by the enormous challenges ahead of this body. Today, our state begins session at a crossroads. Exactly 1 year and 1 day ago, health officials overseas reported the first fatality from COVID-19. Since then, the pandemic has consumed nearly every aspect of our lives. Families across Texas have spent the past year gathered around their kitchen tables, discussing the very issues we will wrestle with this session. Our children, our loved ones, our health, our economy, and our way of life. Today, we're on the brink of defeating COVID-19. Treatments have improved the chances of recovery for thousands of Texans. And our first responders, frontline workers, and most vulnerable Texans now have access to life-saving vaccines, developed in part with medical advancements made right here in the great state of Texas. Now, the difficult recovery begins. And it begins with a very short runway. And if you want to make a joke about short runways and airplanes, please submit your ideas to the Speaker's office by close of business to be submitted in the Journal. Texans are resilient, flexible, and capable of incredible feats when they're allowed to do their jobs, operate their businesses, and live their lives as they see fit. In order to unleash our state's full potential and emerge from this challenge, Texas children and educators must continue to be at the forefront of our legislative agenda this session. When the House last adjourned, we celebrated landmark property tax and school finance reform. But now, Texas children are at risk of falling behind because of disruptions caused to this state as a result of the pandemic. We cannot fail them when they need us the most. To get Texas back to work, we must protect our citizens' health and safety. We must revitalize our economy. We must reduce burdensome regulation that impedes our business climate. We can do all this while balancing the budget without shifting the financial burden or of recovery to our hardworking families. The pandemic has magnified the antiquated ways we conduct business and deliver services in Texas. We soon transform nearly every facet of our lives, including our government, to respond to overwhelming adversity. In a matter of days, business across the state stepped up to help where it was needed the most. Public and higher education shifted curricula online. Telemedicine made healthcare accessible in every corner of the state. And 51 years after putting a man on the moon, we finally figured out how to sell a margarita to go. Members, the red tape cut by Governor Abbott was a lifeline to Texas small businesses. We now enjoy more freedom and economic opportunity. The Texas legislature should embrace the regulatory changes, learn from them, and eliminate unnecessary, burdensome regulations from our statutes once and for all. There are many tough decisions before us, and we will approach them with a profound recognition of the hardships Texas families face. Our challenges lie not just with our economy, but who we are as a people and a nation. Who could have possibly envisioned the scenarios we would soon be discussing with our families when the Texas House last adjourned? Our children asked why the school was closed, or why they could not visit their grandparents. We endured one of the most bitter elections in recent memory. As both sides challenged the motives and tactics of the other, many of our citizens questioned the electoral process itself. This past summer, and as recently as last week, we witnessed the dark side of political and social division, as senseless, unacceptable violence swept through our streets and even through our nation's capital. During this, our 87th session, we have the opportunity to lead by example and work on real issues of real significance for the people of Texas. To do this, I encourage each of you to get to know one another and share your insights. Seek one another's point of view when you disagree, and work together for the betterment of Texas. I take great comfort that we are not alone when we deal with these challenging issues. We have a vital part to play, but the future of Texas lies in the hand of our Creator, and it is His people who have entrusted us to represent them in this chamber. The goodwill that fills this chamber today will be tested by external parties seeking to divide us for their own selfish purposes. But if we ignore the division and instead embody the grit and resolve of our constituents, we will prevail. Members, history is born out of legacy. History is born out of adversity. History is born out of adversity, and legacies are made by doing what is right. The Lone Star State has overcome tough challenges before, and with the grace of God and the pioneer spirit that made Texas the beacon of our nation, we can and we will do it again. We must all do our part, not as Republicans, not as Democrats, but as Texans and as Americans. Let us unite in one common purpose to do what is right for the people of Texas. May God bless you all, and may God bless the great state of Texas. Thank you.
All right, you're just listening to the new Speaker of the House, Republican Dade Phelan of Beaumont and Jefferson County in southeast Texas. We also want to take you right now and show you what's happening. President Trump has arrived in South Texas. I want to show you a live picture now from Valley International Airport in Harlingen. You can see the president descending from Air Force One. The president is going to be choppering to McAllen and then to the town of Alamo. where he's going to be delivering comments about the border wall that his administration has advocated. Usually there is a contingent of politicians, statewide politicians, to greet him, but that is not the case today. Obviously, you saw Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick are in Austin for the start of the legislative session. The president quickly going over to greet some people who were waiting to see him over at the airport. Obviously, this is the first time that we are seeing the president in public since he appeared at a rally on Wednesday morning. During a stop in Arlington yesterday, talk about vaccine centers to combat COVID-19, Governor Abbott weighed in on the president, his ban on social media, and the riot last week at the U.S. Capitol.
First, with regard to the violence always obviously is unacceptable. But the people responsible for that violence are the people who did it, and they're the ones who should be punished for it. With regard to what is happening on social media, listen, typically any company has the right to make whatever decisions they want to with regard to who may use their product. However, what we have in some social media companies is different because they have been given a unique grant of civil liability immunity to maintain an open platform. And it seems like they are no longer complying with the open platform that allows them to receive the civil liability immunity. They cannot have it both ways. They cannot cancel conservative speech while still receiving that immunity. They're going to have to pick or choose which pathway they go down.
Governor, should President Trump resign?
He's in office, what, another week? Listen, all the political machinations in Washington, D.C. About the last few days of his presidency are nothing more than political machinations. What Americans want to see out of the United States Congress, they want to see action. They want to see the United States Congress step it up and doing everything they can to provide more vaccines.
All right now we want to go. That was Governor Abbott yesterday in Arlington, and he is now ready to address House members in Austin at the Texas Capitol. Let's listen.
Thank you all very much, and let me add to the congratulations to Dade Phelan becoming Speaker of the Texas House of Representatives. Speaker, I was very impressed with the remarkable words that you shared with the House, but there really was one thing that stood out to me as I was listening to your speech, and that is your commitment to ensure that moving forward, we will continue to remove the regulations that stood as a barrier for so many businesses to operate in the state of Texas, which is a signal to me that the Speaker is in favor of keeping alcohol to go in the state of Texas. It's an honor to join all of you all here in this historic House chamber for the start of the 87th legislative session. And I'm proud today to be joined by the fabulous First Lady of Texas, Cecilia Abbott. And I want to congratulate all the members as well as your families on your election victories, as well as for the opportunity that those victories provided to you to serve your constituents as well as the entire state of Texas. And I want you to know that coming in here today was a reminder of the ways and the times that I spent on the House floor last session. And I look forward to returning many times during the course of this session, working collaboratively with you, just as we did together last session. And make no mistake about it, last session was a tremendous success. Among other things, we passed sweeping reforms to our school finance system. It made major investments in our students and in our teachers. But now, as the Speaker was articulating, we face new challenges in our state.
Over the past year, Texans have been challenged like never before. But we all know that Texans are resilient, and our state will emerge from this episode in our typical superior fashion. To do that, however, all of us in this chamber must come together and work together over the next 140 days exactly like we did last session. Over the next 140 days, we have the opportunity to place Texas on a trajectory to achieve an even more extraordinary future for our state. That means doing things like tackling the challenges posed by COVID, as well as ensuring that we do more to address the healthcare needs of the people of our state. It means supporting our law enforcement officers in keeping our community safe. It means safeguarding the freedoms guaranteed to all Texans by the United States and Texas constitutions. And it means getting Texans back to work as quickly as possible. When we do this, we will create a healthier, safer, freer, and more prosperous Texas for everybody in our state. But I'll tell you this, now more than ever, Texans need you to succeed. And maybe even more profoundly, America needs Texas to succeed. I look forward to working with you to achieve that success for Texas and for America. And as we do so, may God bless you in your efforts. And may God forever bless the great state of Texas.
All right, Governor Abbott finishing up his remarks to the Texas House. He also congratulated the new Speaker of the House, Republican Dade Phelan of Beaumont. The governor made a very similar speech, basically the same speech he did to the state Senate. One big difference was what he said. He told Dade Phelan that he was pleased to hear that the Speaker wants to remove the barriers, make them permanent, facing businesses that the governor had moved and waived during the pandemic. The governor even joking that he says he would want to keep alcohol to go in Texas. Now, despite a full court press by Democrats during the November elections, Republicans were able to hold on to a majority in both chambers. In the House, there are 82 Republicans, 67 Democrats. One seat is still vacant, but remains in a very Republican district. Over in the Senate, the balance of power is 18 Republicans and 13 Democrats. Republican Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick presides over the Senate. And maybe you are new to Texas and not exactly sure how the Texas legislature does its work. Here is a brief Legislator 101. In some ways, today's Texas legislature works a lot like it did in the 1800s.
This is a state that historically is suspicious of politicians. We have this idea that we don't want government telling us a whole lot of what to do.
Legislative sessions are scheduled every other year and last 140 days. Texas A&M political science professor Dwight Robler says the framers made it a part-time job to avoid attracting professional politicians.
They want somebody who's a businessman or who's a rancher.
The state pays lawmakers $600 a month, plus a per diem of $221 for each day of the session. Once the gavel drops, the journey from bill to law is similar to the one on Capitol Hill.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill.
And that old familiar cartoon.
Well, now I'm stuck in committee and I'll sit here and wait.
So far this session, more than 1,300 bills have been filed, but only about a quarter of those will make it to the finish line.
Most bills die in committee. and many of them not even getting picked up and discussed. They just come in and they get immediately tossed in the proverbial pile in the corner of the room.
The system is designed to kill bills.
Republican State Representative Jared Patterson says that's the way it should be.
It's not an easy process, and it shouldn't be an easy process. I mean, when it's a big responsibility to write laws that people have to live under.
It puts a lot of pressure on the ability of legislators to move something through the maze and get it out.
That pressure, says Democratic State Senator Nathan Johnson, means even promising bills can be left behind.
Granted, several thousand of them, not that sad that they didn't make it, but we lose a lot of good bills every session.
While there are 150 representatives and 31 senators, Professor Robler says a bill's fate mostly depends on two people.
If you don't have the speaker and the lieutenant governor's support, then it's a double uphill battle.
If you want to know which issues are important to them, look at the numbers.
The first 20 bill numbers in both the Senate and the House are special numbers that the leadership gives out to indicate which bills they care the most about. One of the leaders of the two chambers can say, oh, that bill I want to put my blessing on. And so they'll renumber it as number 3 or number 17.
While those bills have a better shot at approval, only one is guaranteed to pass. That's House Bill 1, the state budget. Everything else has to run the gauntlet.
It's hardball politics.
And along with the budget, Medicaid expansion is sure to be among the biggest debates in Austin this session. We just heard from him. Democratic State Senator Nathan Johnson, who represents Dallas, told one of our CBS 11 producers that his Live Well Texas plan would address both issues.
It achieves a very specific objective, and that is to provide access to health care to about 1 million Texans. It'll be about 1.5 million people who are eligible. We expect about 1 million people to now have reliable access to health care. And we expect at the same time, it will actually add money to the state budget. So we're making a healthier Texas while also addressing some of our fiscal problems at the same time.
And explain how that will work. How will it help the budget?
Well, right now we're paying for health care for people who can't afford health care through our property taxes. People are winding up in emergency rooms. And we're paying for it with some help from the federal government at about a 60-40 match rate. If we draw down federal dollars through some sort of ACA expansion, which is Medicaid expansion, really, there's ways you can do it, and the way this bill proposes one way, we're drawing down 90-10 match instead of 60-40. That's going to bring about another $10 billion into our economy every biennium. And when you pump money into the economy, you promote economic activity, and increased economic activity increases tax revenues. So you end up actually making more money than you're spending through this program.
And it will be very interesting to see how Republicans view Medicaid expansion. Historically, we know that they have opposed it because they said that will cost the state a lot of money, billions of dollars, even though the federal government will provide 90% of the funding. So we will wait and see how that progresses during this session. COVID-19 has brought even more risk to our first responders. Now, the two DFW area lawmakers are trying to change the law to make it easier for police officers and firefighters to get benefits if they get sick.
Our first responders are put in harm's way often, in situations often where they can't socially distance, or they may not be able to take the proper precautions because they're out risking their lives to save others. And so we want to make sure that they were protected, and that if it's presumed that they got it on the job, then that means that they are entitled to certain benefits to workman's compensation.
Have you heard of any examples of where maybe a first responder has had issues proving this? Is that where this is coming from?
Yeah, this kind of started back at the beginning of COVID, and there was a police officer in the colony that which I represent that believed that he may have contracted COVID-19. And this was early on in the pandemic, and so folks kind of didn't really know how to handle it. And so we saw the need there that whether it's COVID-19 or another pandemic in the future, we need to make sure that it's handled a certain way.
And by presuming that, like you said, that kind of makes it easier, for treatment and time off and things like that?
Yeah, treatment, time off, and just general workman's compensation benefits. There's the first responders in the state of Texas really have to fight tooth and nail for every benefit that they receive. The Texas Municipal League, which is a group of cities that come together to kind of self-insure throughout the state of Texas. TML fights them tooth and nail on every single benefit. So we're just trying to make sure that we clarify that statute, that there is no fight here, there is no gray area. They are presumed to have gotten this on the job, and therefore they are entitled to certain benefits.
Police officers and first responders, whether it's jailers or EMTs or our brave firefighters, don't have the ability to lock themselves down. They're exposed to this virus on a daily basis. And I just think that as a state government, as a federal government, we have a responsibility to protect their workers' compensation benefits. And then should they lose their lives to the coronavirus, we have a responsibility to have this declared as a line of duty illness.
Are you aware of was this just kind of ensuring that there wasn't going to be a problem, or have you heard of specific cases of officers or first responders, firefighters, having to fight for benefits to prove that they contracted it on the job?
No, we absolutely know they are having to fight for their benefits to prove that the coronavirus was contracted on the job. In fact, there are officers' families who are hoping to get line of duty death benefits that are fighting that battle as we speak.
DeSoto Representative Carl Sherman is hoping to push through a bill about police reform and the Castle Doctrine that he calls Bo's Law. It's in reference to Botham Jean, the Dallas man shot and killed in his apartment by an off-duty Dallas police officer, Amber Geiger. She was coming off a shift and thought she was walking into her apartment and that Jean was an intruder. Sherman's bill addresses police transparency.
The final four components to the bill really get to the transparency and accountability. Because it addresses the body cam matter as well as dash cams that the police are required to activate their body cams during an investigation. Now, a lot of police departments have already addressed this matter, several in North Texas, because their body cams and their dash cams automatically come on. If the siren is engaged, the body cam comes on. If there's a gunshot anywhere around that officer, their body cam is activated. So it addresses that matter, though, for those law enforcement departments that do not have that technology yet. But it also addresses the issue of ensuring that the integrity of the investigation is never questioned. So it addresses the fact that an officer has to keep his body cam on during an investigation. I believe this is the right time, and most of our police officers are good. And what we have to do as lawmakers is ensure that we protect our good officers, because bad officers are bad for good officers. And so we've got to maintain the integrity of our system and get trust back into public safety and for communities of color.
I want to thank you for watching the CBSN DFW special report. The opening day ceremonies at the Texas legislature. The House and Senate are now adjourned until tomorrow. We will continue to monitor developments in Austin and South Texas, where President Trump is visiting. Much more on CBS 11 News this afternoon and here on CBSN DFW. I'm CBS 11 political reporter Jack Fink. Have a great day.